You know, a new year is as good a time as any to reflect on the relationships you have with people. I'm not talking about the romantic relationship, I'm talking about relationships you may or may not have with friends, relatives, neighbours, that sort of thing. As a trainer and coach, and just as a person, I suppose, I'm often approached by people who are struggling with relationships. And one of the things that comes up is that having to deal with what they call nasty people. I mean, they don't, but people they struggle with, people whose behaviour they find difficult. Now, clearly, no one's always nice, just as no one's always nasty. There's a scale. And if we're honest with ourselves, we all move up and down that scale. But some people seem to stay closer to the nasty end more than others. And so I want to explore in this video, why do some people make that choice? And I will say it is, to a large degree, a choice. Biologists will tell us that, oh, your genes determine who you are. And sociologists will say, oh, it's your early upbringing that determines who you are. And they're both important factors, of course. But much more so, I would argue, once we become an adult, is the choices that we make. So I just want to explore the idea that whether we choose to be mostly nice or mostly nasty is a choice. Well, what drives people to choose to be nasty or to behave in a way that people find difficult a lot? Well, one is, quite often people seem to want to project themselves, want to project an image. They want to make sure they're coming across as cleverer than other people, or funnier than other people, or have a more successful life than other people. Or at the other extreme, they might want to project the idea that I'm more pitiable, I'm a bigger victim than other people. And this drives behaviour, seeking hopefully that opinion from others, and it never works. Another area I'd like to explore is the excuses. Again, I've worked with people who are struggling with relationships. The excuses people give themselves for unpleasant behaviour. Here's one. I'm not nasty. I'm a nice person. I am. I mean, I'm only nasty to other people because they're not as nice to me as I think they should be. And many times I've encountered people who take this attitude, and the only reason I'm nasty is that other people aren't as nice to me as I think they should be. But of course, it escalates. Someone does something minor, innocent perhaps, and the person responds in a nasty way that creates this kind of escalating cycle. The other thing I've found is that people who feel they've had something nasty done to them want to seek payback constantly. Once is never enough. I knew someone who once had been forced to slow down by a driver who pulled out in front of her. Yeah, that's annoying. And for the rest of her life, it seemed, every time she was at a T-junction and a car was approaching, she'd wait before pulling out to make the other car slow down. And apart from being obviously dangerous, the fact that this payback had to be done constantly for one instance that it happened to this person shows that this idea that I'm somehow in debit. People seem to think that if someone's nasty to me, it puts me in debit and I have to get back into credit by being nasty to other people. You get these, what are sometimes called anxiety chains. An inadequate manager shouts at their team member, who goes home and shouts to the partner, who then shouts at the kid, who takes it out on Teddy. You know, we've got to be, a nice person is someone who breaks that chain and says, yes, I've had to put up with some unpleasant behaviour. I'm just going to take it in, maybe find a way of putting it down, but I'm not going to take it out on other people. Here's another one. Oh, I'm sorry if I can be nasty sometimes, but you see, I've been hurt in the past. Yeah, well, listen, we've all been hurt in the past. We've all had to deal with unpleasant events that have happened in our lives. It's extraordinary that some people sort of think, oh, I've had a difficult... Other people sail through life without anything bad ever happening to them, so it's okay for me to take it out. It's not. Everyone's been hurt. That doesn't mean you should take it out on people who had nothing to do with that. Moving on. Well, I know I've been a bit sharp lately, but I've got problems, you see. Similar, we've all got problems. I worked with someone who was terminally ill and was friendly, jolly, positive the whole time. Another time I went into work and someone was in a filthy mood being rude to everyone. And when I asked why, I was told, oh, one of her cats is ill. This was the time when another colleague had a mother who was ill. Didn't think that gave her an excuse to take it out on everybody. It doesn't. We've all got problems. Here's another one. Well, I've got it all worked out. I mean, I see myself as a good person and an intelligent person, and I've given matters some thought. So anyone who doesn't agree with me is either not as clever as me or not as good as me. So to them. Yeah, there's a lot of fuss about this at the moment. The idea that social media is driving us into very narrow echo chambers at which people cannot tolerate anybody who's slightly different. But I think there's always been people like that. I remember way back in 1983, someone saying to me, I'll listen to people if I agree with what they're saying, but if I don't agree with what they're saying, well, I'm not going to listen to them. Why should I? So there's always been some of this. I mean, my own view is the people who disagree with you are the ones you really need to be listening to. You could think about it and reject what their viewpoints are, but at least give it some thought. Now, here's one of the worst. It's a joke. I just said that as a joke. Can't you take a joke? Yeah, this is one of the most insidious forms of nastiness. This idea that, oh, I'm not being nasty, I'm being funny, I make a joke to entertain everyone. No, it's only funny if everybody is genuinely laughing. If it's just you and a couple of dim-witted sycophants you might have picked up along the way are laughing, it's not funny. It's only funny if everybody is laughing. And too often I see people who like to score points and slap other people down. And when challenged, it's just a joke. I've heard that called the bully's excuse. And I think that's a good term for it. So don't do it. And there's plenty of other excuses. The idea that, oh, I'm sensitive, so everyone's got to worry about my feelings, even though I don't care about anybody else's. And, oh, well, all those people are like this, kind of categorizing people and so on and so forth. We've all seen it. One of the things I've found out by exploring people who are struggling in relationships is that people who are nasty, people who give themselves any of these excuses, they don't see themselves as nasty people. No, they see themselves as victims. Oh, you know, I've had problems. They're the victim. They're only responding in a way that they feel is justified, and it's not. And of course, another reason, and perhaps this brings us back to the point about early environment, there are families where being nasty is the norm, where everyone is seen to sort of want to score points off each other and slap other people down. And if you've ever grown up in an environment where nastiness is the norm, well, I'm sorry, but it doesn't have to continue like that. You can challenge the norm. So this is the point I want to make. It's about choices. Now, a couple of warnings. If you find yourself thinking, oh, I know someone who's just like, that explains why my cousin is... No. There's only so much you can do about other people. Maybe there's some you can help, but very often they're hard to help because, as I say, they see themselves as victims, not as perpetrators. It's not about other people. All we can do is look at ourselves, examine our own behaviour, and ask myself, what prompts me to move up the scale from nice towards nasty, and to reflect on that and say, can I find a more constructive way of dealing with whatever's going on in a way that doesn't perpetuate anxiety chains and doesn't add to nastiness? The other thing to watch out for is the other extreme. Oh, I know, I'm a terrible person, I do this all the time. Wallowing in that victimhood. You're not a terrible person. We've all done things we're ashamed of. Okay, all I need to do is to clock that, reflect on it, and give myself different choices going forward. Because it is a choice. I'm not saying it's an easy one, but with thought, reflection, perhaps with a good trusted friend, you'll find you can make different choices, spend more time at the nice end of the scale. And while that doesn't guarantee everyone's going to be nice to you back, because there's still nasty people out there, I think you'll get a better life.
This was a video from my channel 5MTC, which stands for 5-Minute Training Courses. Please subscribe for more and maybe find my book on Amazon.